Before we get into this section here, there are things that have to be done, what I call the prerequisites. Understanding the company context. You have to understand what the company context is, what we do, who we service, and so forth. Expectations of interested parties, what they expect from us. Quality management system, the scope and its processes. Actions to address risk and opportunity. Quality objectives and plan to meet them, and planning of changes. Then when we get into the actual operation planning and control, the organization shall plan, implement, and control processes needed to meet requirements and implement actions by determining the product and service requirements, establishing criteria for our processes, and the acceptance criteria of products and services provided. We have to understand what that is. In other words, to build, we have to build to something, whether it be providing a service or building a product. We have to determine what that's going to look like, the acceptance criteria of that at the end of our planning and controls. Determining the product service requirements can include personnel and product safety, producibility and inspectability, reliability, availability and maintenance, suitability of the parts and materials, and the selection and development of embedded software, and product obsolescence. The prevention, detection, and removal of foreign objects, handling, packaging, and prevention, recycling or final disposal of products at the end of the life, establish criteria for the processes and the acceptance of the products and services. The acceptance of the product can be found in design verification, process controls such as the selection of verification of key characteristics, special requirements, feature frames, things that are really important, process capability measurements, statistical process control, SPC, design of experiment, verification, and FEMA, which is failure mode, effect, and critical analysis. And like anything else, we have to determine the resources needed. We have to implement process control based on conformity and acceptance criteria. We have to keep documents necessary to have confidence processes were carried out as planned and demonstrate the conformity of their acceptance requirements. Note, keeping implies maintaining and retaining documentation. You have to have objective evidence that you've done it correctly and you've done it to the requirements and specifications of your customer, statutory, regulatory, and everything else. Documentation is the key. And determine the processes and controls needed to manage critical items such as key characteristics, process controls, like I said, feature frames, anything that's extremely important. Engaging personnel involved in operational planning and control. People have to be involved in that. Everyone has to understand what we're doing and be on board with it. The resources for support and maintenance of the product and services. These resources can be personnel, equipment, training. What external products or services are required and outsourced processes controlled. We have and controlled to prevent the delivery of non-conforming product and services. Very important. Let's look at what some advanced product quality planning looks like. This is usually performed by the project manager, and these prerequisites are things you have to think about before you start the job. Planning is required to meet customer requirements within acceptable risk. And to do that, you have to recognize a few things. Number one, the risk of schedule constraints. And that deals with the capacity of our organization and our abilities. Structured and controlled. We have to structure and control the processes. Timed events performed. Appropriate sequence of operations. And meeting requirements at an acceptable risk. These are all important. We also have to control planning changes and review for unintended consequences and changes. Take actions to mitigate any adverse effects as necessary. Ensure that outsourced processes are controlled. See section 8.4 on this here. It gets into more detail later on. Control externally provided product and services. The types and extent of controls needed. How much controls are needed, and that's based on the complexity of the part or service that's provided to us. And information needed for providers. In other words, what information do we have to give them, our outside sources, to make sure that they have everything they need and they fully understand what we want. Establish, implement, and maintain a process to plan and control the temporary or permanent transfer of work. Sometimes we have to move it from one operation to the other, or one department to the other, or one facility to the other. We have to make sure that it's very coherent what we're doing. It's defined, it's documented, we have good work instructions, and when we transfer it, we're going to produce the same product here that we're going to produce over here. And we're going to ensure continuing conformity to the requirements. We have to meet the acceptance requirements. That means our documentation and our planning has to be really sound. Manage work impacts and the risk. I have a couple notes here that are very important, and it deals with external providers or the transfer of work. We have to understand what that is. External providers are companies, they're not part of our organization. We purchase them through statement of works and purchase orders and so forth, but they are not us. They're not our organization. So when we deal with them, we have to make sure that they're going to produce the product. If they subcontract that product to someone below them, that means that we have to make sure that whoever that is as qualified as they were as part of our selection to make sure they meet the requirements. The way it's written here, it's section 8.4, which deals with procurement or external providers. Section 8.5 is us. That's what we do in our planning in our facility here. Note, in procurement or purchasing, external providers or external providers to another external provider must meet the requirements of section 8.4. And that's how we purchase material and purchase product and purchase services. In section 8.5, which is production, the second note here is work transfer from one organization facility to another or from an external provider to the organization must meet the requirements of section 8.5. Two different animals. One deals with companies outside our facility and people that we hire to do things, and the other one deals with bringing things in that we control. In other words, section 8.5, we can see it. It's right here. Section 8.4, any of these services, we can't see it because it's taken place out of our domain, something that we own, or our building, or our facility, or our organization. Very important. Now the next section is going to be section 8.1.1 through 8.1.4. It's going to deal with the operation risk management, configuration management, product safety, and the prevention of counterfeit products. This is a very important section. So let's prepare for section 8.1.1.